Hi, folks. I'm Joe Wesley of J&L Creative Solutions, and thank you for visiting us for the first time. If it's that, thank you even more for coming back. It shows we've had enough value to you to make it worth the effort. My guest today is
Jonathan Farr. Hi, everybody.
okay. Thank you, Jonathan, for saying hi and hi back from the group. I'm sure for those who are seeing us for the first time, what we talk about is taking the hot seat challenge to discover an ingredient of your secret sauce. It's unscripted. It's unrehearsed. It's for a 30-minute session, plus or minus a few. Did I say 30 minutes? I did. Plus or minus a few seconds. One of the things I do, you'll see my eyes down, head down. It's not that I'm falling asleep. What I do, have a mind like a sieve. It's like I make notes, and right now it's a blank notepad. And I have two pens to make notes. I'll refer back to those notes at some point when I share with my guest and our audience what I see to be an ingredient of his secret sauce. Now, I say ingredient. Look, we're talking 30 minutes. So we're talking boiling water, salt, and pepper. We're not talking oregano. We're not talking sage. We're not talking tomato paste. So I should also say that there will be a description of myself, contact information also of my guest, Jonathan. So in the YouTube version of it, this does go out simultaneously to YouTube, Facebook, and LinkedIn. And also we post to Alignable. So if you want to connect with us, that information is readily available. Having said that, I begin by asking my guests, so Jonathan, what is your favorite pastime?
Ooh, I think there are two simultaneously.
Okay.
One is looking up things I know nothing about so that I can learn how they work
Right.
in the world. And the other is facilitating or helping others, whether it's volunteer work or just feeding the stray critters outside in my yard.
I hear that. I'm going to interrupt. I'm assuming you were not doing the backyard when you were 3 years of age. And maybe you were. You might have been one of those exceptional human beings that did that. I followed behind Dad, and he gave me a little wheelbarrow, and I was cutting the grass while he's cutting the grass. So that could very well be, as I'm hearing myself talk here, or helping others. But I'm going to make an assumption, and correct me if I'm wrong on that, that you were doing things maybe 3 to 5-ish years of age that wasn't necessarily very organized, but you enjoyed doing it for the sake of doing it. Is that it?
Correct.
Okay. So could you share that with us?
Oh, 3 to 5 years of age. Well, once I learned the joys of mud as a child, much to the chagrin of my mother.
I'm sorry, learn the joys of what again?
Mud, making mud.
Oh, mud, I get that. Okay.
Yeah.
My guy.
Yeah, much to my mother's dismay.
Right. Now, what did you like about the mud thing? What was that? What drew you to that?
It was just, to me, it was magical what water could do.
Okay.
And then from there, it wasn't long before I quote unquote started a garden, which just meant sticking things in the mud.
Okay. I get that. Now, do you have names for the different things you stuck, or expectation of the things you stuck, or was it kind of let's see what happens?
Oh yeah. Well, if I stick a twig in the mud, that's going to become a tree.
Okay, I get that.
Talking at a very young age, when I was really young, I wanted to be a farmer.
Okay. Why?
Because to me, at the time, at a very young age, and I knew nothing about agriculture, farmers had lots of different animals, which appealed to me.
Okay.
Plus, they grew lots of different types of food, which meant they could feed lots of people.
Okay. Now, I hear that maybe, but quite honestly, I thought food happened because my mother brought it in the house. I did not connect it well enough to it came from animals and birds and trees and bees. Really? 5 years of age? Was that the connection, or did that evolve later in your life?
Oh, no. That was at around 5.
How did you discover that? Did you grow up on a farm? Let me ask you that.
Eventually, I did 5 years later when I was 10.
Okay.
My parents moved, and we had a dairy farm.
Mm-hmm.
But prior to that, there were a lot of rural areas where I grew up, and my parents would go for drives. They would intentionally get lost to try and find their way home, just so they were more familiar with the surrounding area.
Okay. Nice. What did they have? What was their professions or their business out of curiosity?
My
Excuse me,
father,
I'm getting interrupted. Folks, this is a misnomer. Everything I'm asking is out of curiosity. So I don't know why I had to phrase that, but sorry for interrupting. Go ahead.
no worries. Oh, my father was an engineer by trade.
Okay.
My mother, while she had degrees in zoology and also physical education,
Interesting.
um, had the full-time job of being my mother and keeping me out of trouble.
Okay. I hear that. Now, did your parents involve you deeply in the search? Did they ask you for your opinion?
No, no,
Did you?
no,
Okay, so they were just the puzzle was between the two of them to figure out how to get back home.
right,
Interesting.
right. I was more or less a passive
I
observer.
understand. Okay, but an observant passenger, I'm going to
Yeah.
assume. Interesting. All right. So 3 to 5 years of age. Now let's say 7 to 9 to maybe 11. Did your emphasis of what you caught your attention shift, or was it still in the same direction?
It was still in the same direction. I was taking extracurricular classes when between the ages of 7 and 9.
I'm going to poke at you. Was that because you were slow or brilliant?
Yeah. I to this day I don't understand why my teachers said I was special.
Okay.
But the what my parents thought that I had an interest in science,
All right.
so I was taking courses on how to use a microscope and prepare slides and watch the single-celled organisms, and
Okay.
it was fascinating. All of that in a drop of water was fascinating.
I get that. So you stayed with the intrigue of science for a while, the observation.
Mhm.
And again, folks, I'm looking down to make notes. And at what point would you say, because I'm assuming many people who have the luxury of it have different phases of development and interest. Did you have a shift of interest late teens, perhaps?
Late teens. I discovered a few things about myself um, that applicable math and science, at least at the time, were
Right.
not my forte.
All right.
But writing was. So I shifted to writing and discovering all the words I could to describe what was happening in my head or what I saw.
Were you one of those people that looked up and read the dictionary?
That's a funny story.
Okay.
Uh,
I'm listening.
every for one class every week, um, the teacher wanted a new vocabulary word.
Okay.
That's fine. I was also the only person who wasn't on the football team in that class.
Ooh,
And I weighed a whopping like 70 pounds when I was 15.
really?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, yeah. 70 pounds, soaking wet. I was and because I was a nerd.
Okay.
Uh, and so instead of people, instead of me handing over lunch money, I ended up looking up extra words for all of these guys. So, you know, they said their word and got on with it. But I'm learning 30 new words a week, 30 plus new words a week.
I hear that. Well, I had a question. You looking at words? Was there an exchange of value services here? You're helping them in their grades. They're helping you to survive. How does that? What was the give and
Uh,
take on that?
oh, I was helping them. Yes, in a way.
Hmm.
They were helping me to survive in that
Okay.
they were not actively pursuing me.
I get that. I get that. Well, I live the same life. That's what I was able to ask you that question almost intuitively.
Good call. But yeah, that was it. My passion suddenly shifted to writing and words.
So when you shifted into writing, was it a direction, or would you write short things for the sake of writing? There may be kids, even maybe adults, who have an organized flow of thought to put on paper. Others may, like a puzzle, pull things together, or maybe two or three words start off with and create from there. Did you have a technique, a flavor, a style?
If I had part of an idea or a small scene in my mind,
Okay.
I would try to expand it and see where it went and where it came from, and that would become a story. I was not as talented as, let's say, Ray Bradbury, who just used two lists of words and would choose one and another and go for it.
Right.
Um, and from there, I wanted to know, hey, how can I make writing a career?
Mhm.
And from what I saw, it wasn't very easy. but
Fair enough.
but I took my passion a step further and went to journalism.
Nice. Okay. Now, when you talked about writing, there are some people I will have on screen that would start off writing poetry, perhaps, to share thoughts,
Mhm.
which to me implies a structure, if nothing else, niche style, if I'm saying that correctly.
Yeah,
Was yours more random, more open? Rather than say random, I don't mean to say disorganized, but more eclectic, perhaps, is a better way to ask.
it it covered a wide range of things from poetry, songwriting to short stories to eventually screenplays and things of that nature.
Right.
I was I was curious about different styles of writing, so I would at least make an attempt at them.
Okay. No, that's good. I'm a slow writer, folks, so give me a few moments to catch up here. We don't want to eat up all the clock, obviously. So you did your writing in
Hmm.
school, college. Did it stay with you?
Yes, it did.
Okay, that's what you majored in journalism. Duh,
Yes.
listen better.
However, when I left college, that whole internet thing came out, so the demand for journalism kind of took a bit of a dip.
Right.
But I found out that writing and research were still valued in the realm of marketing.
Okay.
So that was my big career shift.
And for those who aren't in marketing as a lifestyle structure, could you give us, say, one sentence, perhaps two concept of what marketing is?
I yes, I like to think marketing in a way parallels humor in that there's a bit of truth, there's a bit of a misdirect,
Hmm.
and it gets people to purchase a product or service.
Okay. Ah, that's an interesting approach. I'm laughing at myself. I said at the very beginning of this that We're going to allow, I didn't say that, maybe 20 minutes of time and dialogue. The last 10 minutes we walk into your business. My real endpoint of dialogue is I mentioned the blank sheet to you initially. It's now full.
Wow.
We don't have any more space, so we have to shift gears here. And it's almost earlier than what I want. But you mentioned the word humor, and I don't want to start dialoguing in my end until I poke at that some more. What's that concept to you? How do you, assuming you use it, how do you make it work?
Well, a lot of, I mean, I think a lot of businesses take themselves too seriously,
Okay.
and which means that a lot of their marketing materials come off as very dry
Mm-hmm.
and uninteresting. It was like when I was a kid watching football on Sunday. You'd you'd see an advertisement from a big firm, big financial firm.
Mm-hmm.
And as a kid, I didn't understand what that was and how that jibed with the beer ad that followed. Like I knew what beer was. I knew who they were marketing to.
Right.
The big firm I didn't understand, and they were being extremely serious.
Mm-hmm.
Look, I'm trying to think. Smith Barney with John Houseman.
Now, for
We
those who don't, excuse me, for those who aren't in the literary entry, John who? And what does he do, John whatever?
right.
I'm serious. For those in the audience that may not know the reference.
John Houseman was a classic actor. He was in a number of movies. The only one that comes to mind is Rollerball, which is sad because I know his list of works goes on for miles.
Okay.
But he would sit in a chair and he would say, "At Smith Barney, we earned our money the old we we made our money the old-fashioned way. We earned it."
Mm. All right.
And that was the whole commercial. And I was like, theoretically, everyone else is also earning money. I don't understand what's happening here.
Mm-hmm.
This is dry. This doesn't interest me.
Okay.
So when I started getting into marketing, I would interject little bits of humor or maybe treat what I was writing as a joke or a song where it plays and then there's a turnaround
Mm-hmm.
with, I guess, what we refer to as a call to action.
I hear that. I'm going to have to interrupt, folks,
Yes.
for the commercial break here. That again, we have set up for part of this presentation for the YouTube description section. What we do, our contact information. And for those of us who are seeing, for those of you who are seeing us for the first or second time, again, thank you for signing on. Please ask questions. We do audit what you say. If you like or don't like, post that. If you feel you'd like to come back and visit again, we would really appreciate that. And remember to share, not with us also, with your friends, your associates. And quite frankly, I'd rather have a good, even bad, especially bad comment. We can grow on that rather than no comment at all. So we are soliciting that. Remember to subscribe to this program. If you'd like to be on again, taking your hot seat challenge, feel free to do that also. Now, I'm sorry for interrupting. What I'm going to do, I'm going to ask you to give a 2-sentence description, because there's now a time element here, of what you do as a business. Then I'm going to share with you my thoughts on that.
Okay, what I do as a business is I do bookkeeping, I do marketing consulting, and I can also provide financial solutions to other businesses.
Right. And do you use humor as part of what you do or not?
I try to. I mean, bookkeeping can only get so funny.
Okay.
But marketing has a lot of leeway to be creative and exciting.
I hear that. And to the folks, I make it a point when I first make contact with somebody, they're not cold contacts. We have at least one discussion. about their business, not about who they are. Because again, this is unscripted, unrehearsed. And when I first met Jonathan, he made a comment that he lives a very exciting life, if I may be saying it incorrectly. And then he took a pause and says, I'm a bookkeeper, said it proudly also. And the paradox of what I found very intriguing. So I'm going to share some thoughts with you. And I'm going to now look at my script plan as we talk more about your business shortly after that. You began by talking about, in part, making your garden, your stick gardens, maybe mud gardens. I'm not sure the proper terminology. If it works, it works. And what appealed to you about it, it wasn't a specific rose garden or pecan garden or whatever it may be. You wanted to try different things as part of your experience in what you're doing. It was creative. You had curiosity. That's what I'm hearing. What intrigued me really unexpectedly is that you said your parents, who were both well-educated, would take trips off someplace and deliberately get lost for the challenge of coming back to it. And you were young enough not to be necessarily directly involved, but that was part of your life. The exploration, again, the unknown, making something happen with it, rather than be frightened off by it. And that's kind of how I see it. And at some point, you had a dairy farm. Again, the commentary was you wanted to do different things. That it was not exploration. And to me, is that the key concept is proactive nature of exploration. And at some point, I'm going to ask Jonathan if I'm far off on this. So I'm not lecturing so much as sharing my thoughts. And the concept is, again, microscopes that you would think, geez, here's a right brain persona, exploration, artistic, but he liked the microscope because he was able to make observations once again of different items sliding across the screen. And then he discovered writing. I think, again, it comes back to the art of exploration, drawn to words. That's a key phrase. Again, drawn to. And as a result, made it an avocation word without any specific goal in mind. So then it became a survival technique in terms of the only nerd in town. I know how that works, by the way, and earning your keep in the world around you. I get that totally. And I thank you for sharing that. That's funny. So, but again, looking at the environment and what value can he bring, not only to himself, but to the world at large. What skills would work, he pulls on something he's already a wordsmith. I'm using that concept correctly. Even it may be a young version of it, but still that concept. And the issue of writing, again, most people I've met who have written since whatever, poems or prose or poetry, you sound like you were very eclectic about your choice. And again, it implies to me the expansive nature of how you approach things. Now, how all that fits into bookkeeping, I'm still lost on that one. So I won't poke at that. But what I do suspect, though, that what you do as a bookkeeper is more than a mechanical version of it. You may very well suggest some concepts, even though it may be technical, perhaps even creative use of one's budget or use of money, perhaps. So the question I'm going to ask is, one other thing I wrote. Then you talked about humor. And for me, effective humor, I believe in the beauty is in the eyes of the beholder. And if your humor is considered off kilter to your intended audience, it's going to go bad against you. So to use humor well, you have to be somewhat aware of yourself, the different techniques of humor. But I think to be able to merge the humor side of it with the exploration side of it, which is, I think, kind of what humor is, and the tactical business side of it, I find an intriguing conglomeration. Am I far off what I'm saying?
You are dead center at the bullseye.
Okay. Well, thank you. And again, this is unscripted, unrehearsed, folks. I never know how it's going to turn out, but thank you for that comment. So could you share with us more precisely what you do? We've got a total of 4 minutes. I'm going to give you 2 minutes on that.
Okay. I do bookkeeping.
Let me do this differently. Why are you not the competition?
Why me and not the competition?
Right.
I like to, one, tailor the experience, whether it's bookkeeping and I will dive into whatever industry that business is in,
Mm-hmm.
so I know it inside and out. So
Okay.
and with marketing,
So that's the exploration side.
that's the exploration side.
Mm-hmm.
Same thing with marketing, and I do it to scale because I know a lot of businesses think marketing, that's a huge expense. No, it's not. No,
So
it's
let me
not.
get this straight technically. So bookkeeping is one thing, but marketing, how does that fit into bookkeeping as a technique for possible for prospect? I'm not sure clear on that.
There is some crossover. Um, Usually, if I'm doing bookkeeping and I see that a business has a rocky or uneven revenue, I'll do a search to see how big of a footprint they have digitally,
Mm-hmm. Oh.
and say, well, maybe we could allocate part of the budget for marketing.
So you bring a value added service to the table, it sounds like.
Yes.
Oh.
Yeah. Same thing with the business finance side. If I see that they are experiencing growing pains by looking at their books, I
Mm-hmm.
say, hey, here is financing to help your business grow, and most of the times it won't put debt on their books.
Okay.
So I try and give them the necessities: finance, bookkeeping, and marketing, without it being a financial burden for them.
I understand. Well,
Mm.
I'm going to. I don't know exactly what you do, but I would say without being a financial burden, and one could look at that you're making more money than you're spending.
Yes. Yeah. Invest in me as your bookkeeper, your marketer, or your financial person. And yes, if you're one of those bottom line people, your return on investment will be higher than what you put in.
Okay. Fair enough. I find this intriguing. And to the audience, I never know how things are going to turn out. And I'm always intrigued by the linear connectivity. To summarize from my end, that the issue of innate curiosity, exploration, curiosity, again, I said that, enhanced by the parents, and all of a sudden the item that flashes in my head, problem solving, not just checking the books, which in itself is an issue, but and problem solving, and again, exploration, creative, expansive mode. I've never heard of that combination before. In terms of how you present your business. So for those of you in the audience who are looking for something, how do you make a choice? Bookkeepers are like overhead garage door repairmen in terms of numbers, and it sounds the same syndrome. But if the style of and the persona and the presentation of Jonathan makes sense to you, this may be your ideal go-to person for your books. Something you like to take home, not just books, your business, that to be more broad concept. Anything you want to take us home with, Jonathan? Jonathan is a final word.
Um, I would say that a lot of people, as you presented to me, left brain, right brain, a lot of people think that the two can't be bridged. They can, and it's very easy.
Mm-hmm.
Go to your kitchen and pull out a recipe. You're going to see precise measurements, but at the end, you can have a delicious creation.
Okay, we'll end
And
at that. Thank you
that's
very much. That's
that's what I've tried to do with my business.
a great metaphor, a great summary. I appreciate that, folks. Remember to visit us. We come out on a regular basis. Any questions or comments to Jonathan and myself, please feel free to share. We will respond back. And have a good one. Thanks again, Jonathan.